everyone. Phoenix Knight here. Welcome to the channel, and welcome back to the 2023 Winter Campaign for Arkham Horror, the card game. We had the campaign intro for the Winter Campaign as the final video of 2022 Friday, so let's ring in the new year with the first scenario, Ice and Death Part 1. Now, I'm getting slightly spoilerific by even saying Part 1, but this is a very long scenario. Anyway, speaking of long things, we've got a long scenario intro, so what say we jump right in.
Scenario 1, Ice and Death. It has been a long 8 weeks since you left Boston, and not without its toil. The Theodosia followed much the same route as its predecessors, the Arkham and the Miskatonic, first sailing southward along the east coast and through the Panama Canal, before venturing toward the Antarctic Circle. As the weather grew steadily colder, icebergs became more and more of a problem for the ship to navigate, but with the crew's expertise and the logs of the previous captains who made the same journey, you make good time. Soon enough, you spy the mist-covered peaks of Mount Erebus and Terror ahead, marking the site of Ross Island, near the ice shelf that will serve as the expedition's landing spot. As you approach the coast, Dr. Kensler and the rest of the team meet aboard the Theodosia to discuss your plans. We'll use the same breach's buoy system as before to unload supplies onto the ice shelf, she explains. Mr. Fredericks, Mr. Ellsworth, and Mr. Claypool, you'll be taking one of our smaller boats to the shelf to find us a landing zone. Miss Takada, once we have a camp up and running, those aeroplanes are your first priority. Mr. Ashavak, I expect those sledges to help move supplies from the landing to camp. As soon as we reach the ice shelf, there's going to be a lot of work to get done in a short time. I don't want you to have to wrangle 36 dogs on top of all that, so get them in order. Elia rolls his eyes and idly pets Anu, who sits diligently by his side. Yes, ma'am. Professor Dyer speaks up. I suspect the lack of ice melting and boring equipment means we aren't taking any mineral samples, he asks rhetorically. Dr. Kensler shakes her head. No need. Although if we happen to find a suitable piece, we might as well claim it. That said, our mission is solely to corroborate the findings you made with Danforth, and to bring back more evidence of these ancient species, these elder things as you dubbed them. A living specimen would be ideal, of course. Such a strange and alien beast, trapped in ice throughout the ages. It would be like discovering a live woolly mammoth, I imagine. He balks at that. A living specimen? You do know these things killed several of Lake's men, right? And how do you propose we capture one exactly? She blinks. You're the expert, William. You tell me. Dyer walks off, shaking his head and muttering angrily. I knew this was a bad idea. All right, you all have your assignments. We will reach land within the hour. Be ready, Dr. Kensler says, dismissing the meeting. Before she can go below deck, you approach and remark that you aren't sure what you should be doing just yet. Oh, there will be enough manual labor to go around, she replies with a hint of a smirk. Proceed to Ice and Death, Part 1.
Before we do proceed to Ice and Death Part 1, I imagine that's going to end very happily for an astronomer like Norman. Tony might not mind that too much, but anyway, I'm getting slightly off track here. Here we go.
Ice and Death, Part 1. Intro 1. After 2 weeks and many hours of hard work, the expedition is ready to make its first foray into the cold, dead continent of Antarctica. Miss Takada, along with 2 other mechanics, have fully assembled 3 aeroplanes along the flat ice shelf, a perfect place for takeoffs and landings. Your team congregates by the aeroplanes, along with several days' worth of camping equipment. The plan is to fly 2 of the planes over the vast, jagged peaks, taking aerial photographs of the stone city mentioned in Dyer's account. That is, if such a thing really exists. If we can find a safe landing zone, we will set up a temporary outpost, Dr. Kensler explains. Dyer, Danforth, Fredericks, and Claypool will stick around while the rest of us head back to base camp. We can use the sledges to ferry supplies to and from the camps. Otherwise, we'll simply scout out the area and head back to base camp. The team nods in agreement and begins boarding the planes. If Winifred Habermock is one of the investigators in the campaign, proceed to Intro 2. Otherwise, skip to Intro 3.
And as we see in the initial shot here, we see that Winifred is neither of the investigators in this campaign, so Intro 3 is waiting.
Intro 3. Buckle up, your pilot says. You climb into your seat and get ready for the flight. One at a time, the 2 planes take off from the ice shelf and soar into the opaque fog. The rough Antarctic winds and low visibility make for poor flying conditions, but nonetheless, you venture through the beautiful and deceptive polar mirages, over miles of icy wastes and barren snowdrifts. Dr. Kensler peers out a window as you pass a magnificent view of distant mountains like vibrant, enchanted castles floating above the clouds. They're beautiful, she remarks quietly. These are nothing, Dyer begins. Wait until you see... And then the storm hits. The winds are so sudden and fierce that they almost force you out of your seat. Both planes shunt to and fro in the horrid winds, and you hear several of the passengers shouting behind you. What in the hell, Fredericks grunts. We have to head back, Claypool shouts. These winds will force us down if we keep going. We're so close, Dr. Kensler growls bitterly. We don't have a choice, he yells back, but it's too late. The plane lurches toward the ground, and the pilot struggles in vain to regain control. All of the other passengers notice the dark shape in the sky at the same time you do. It is a massive shadow, like a curtain drawn across the mountains, or perhaps the tattered wings of an antediluvian behemoth. It scowls at you with dreadful, hollow eyes. Then it reaches out and proceed to Intro 4. Intro 4. As you regain consciousness, intense pain sears through your blistering skin. Through the haze, you can barely hear muffled shouting outside the burning husk of the airplane. Somebody grips your arm, pulls you from the wreckage, and hurls you onto the soft snow. More shouts erupt all around you. There's another. Quickly, grab my hand. You rise to your feet with a world of effort. Miraculously, you are only bruised and winded. Most of the other team members are similarly unharmed, except... Gather the 9-story assets from the expedition team encounter set. Shuffle them and choose one at random. The chosen character was killed in the plane crash. In the expedition team section of the campaign log, cross out their name. Record in the campaign log, character's name was killed in the plane crash. Find and read the passage in the next column that corresponds to the character killed in the plane crash. Then, proceed to set up.
And by find the passage in the next column, we're going to mean find the proper voice record, find the proper audio recording. After I say that in proper English, but anyway. So here's the expedition team. So we're going to go ahead and shuffle them up. Give it a cut. And Professor William Dyer was killed in the plane crash. So, the expedition team section of the campaign log, Professor William Dyer. Make a note in the log. Sorry, I'm going so quiet. I'm just making the note in the campaign log. And now the fun begins, because now I get to try to find which passage I actually need. So I'm looking for Professor William Dyer.
If Avery Claypool...
Nope.
If Danforth was killed...
Nope.
If Dr. Amy Kent...
No.
If Dr. Mollis...
No.
If Elia Asheville...
Nope.
If James Cookie... If Professor William Dyer
There we
was
go.
killed in the plane crash... Danforth drops to his knees as he examines the elderly man's mangled body. I should have, he begins, but the words aren't there. Dr. Kensler places a hand on his shoulder. This is my fault, not yours, she offers. I shouldn't have dismissed his concerns. That shape in the sky, it wasn't natural. But the horrible look in Danforth's eye doesn't fade. Come on, kid, Fredericks motions to Danforth. I know it hurts, but we gotta get moving. Gonna be night sooner than you think. Then we're all hosed. Danforth nods slowly, but you have to physically pull him away from his mentor before his eyes snap away from Dyer's.
Wow, that's heavy stuff to start the campaign with. We've already got... So what did we lose from Dyer? Looks like we lost the ability to heal horror from an investigator or another ally asset. Which... with Tony could be a problem. I don't think Norman's too overly bothered by that, but anyway. Alright, so we had a plane crash, and now that we're through the intro finally, now we can go ahead and start to set up the scenarios. So, next up we'll go ahead and remind everyone of what the tarot reading was. Tony had a specific card because it had a specific reading that was supposed to affect only him, but the card kind of missed that memo. because we had to flip. I'll zoom out just a touch here. Because we flipped Judgment 20. When the game begins, replace the highest non-negative token in the cast bag with a skull. Swap them back after the game ends. I did that already as part of setup when I set everything up last night. But anyway, on the good side, we left the world 21. So actually, no, this is on the bad side that we left the world 21. Each investigator defeated during this scenario, this game suffers one trauma of their choice during resolution. On the good side, and it would help if I actually get these resources out, the Magician 1. Each investigator begins the game with 3 additional resources. So now I will stop being a derp on the resource front. And each of our gentlemen will start with 8 resources. Bring this cup over for Tony. 3, 6, and 8. And guys, I really hope you dressed warm for this one because it is going to be a very uncomfortable scenario. But anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at our starting hands. Tony will be our lead investigator for this first scenario. And we will see that we have 2 copies of Tony's 38 Colt, 3 ammo. After you play Tony's 38 Long Colt, play another one from your hand at no cost. Spend an ammo as an action to fight. +1 combat for each bounty on the attached enemy. Deals +1 damage. If this attack defeats an enemy with 1 or more bounties on it, place a bounty on bounty contracts and takes up a hand slot. Then we have a Prepared for the Worst I don't completely need right now. 1 cost to play combat and lore on commit. Search the top 9 cards of your deck for a weapon asset and add it to your hand. Shuffle your deck. That reminds me, on a related note, Tony's Long Colt gives you a combat, lore, and a wild card on commit. Then we have Opportunist with a wild card on commit. Commit only to a skill test you're performing. If you succeed by 3 or more, return Opportunist to your hand after this test instead of discarding it. And we have a Vicious Blow, combat on commit. If skill test is successful during an attack, this attack deals +1 damage. And then for Norman's hand, we have, here we go. Two copies of Deduction, which is an additional lore on commit, and if you succeed while investigating a location, discover 1 additional clue at the location. No Stone Unturned. Choose an investigator at your location. That investigator searches the top 6 cards of his or her deck for a card, draws it, and shuffles. A Lab Assistant. Max hand size increased by 2. Reaction: after Lab Assistant enters play, draw 2 cards. 1 health, 2 sanity on soak. And a Captivating Discovery. Search the top 6 cards of your deck. You may place up to 3 of your clues on your location. For each clue placed in this way, choose and add 2 of the searched cards to your hand, then shuffle your deck. And Norman also plays with the top card of his deck revealed, which he can play at -1 cost. But on top of his deck we find a Shriveling as a 3 cost. Combat on commit, uses 4 charges. Spend an action to fight. This attack uses will instead of combat and deals +1 damage. If a bad symbol is revealed during the attack, take 1 horror. So that will be on top of Norman's deck. Next up, let's take a look at the starting act and agenda decks. So our agenda 1A first. Cold Welcome. I'm going to zoom in just a touch. Okay, that's messy, but it kind of works. This isn't exactly how you imagined your first foray into the Atlantic wilds. Or the Antarctic wilds, yeah. The stinging cold and lashing frozen winds will only get worse over time. Forced, after a location is entered by an investigator for the first time, put into play each set-aside location connected to that location. Use the map and the campaign guide for reference. So depending on how many connecting locations there are, I may do that on camera, or I may shut the camera off while I do that. But anyway, we also have an act we need to go through. So we'll take a look at Act 1A. Search for a campsite. You're going to have to find a way back to camp, and soon, or you'll have to make do camping in the wilds. Action. If each investigator is at the same location, and that location has no clues on it, resign. You set up camp. Each investigator resigns. Objective. Find somewhere safe to set up camp. If each undefeated investigator has resigned, advance. The higher the shelter value of the location they resigned at, the better. So that's something we do need to keep an eye on. Last up, the gentlemen will move over to the map, and let's join them over there. This scenario is going to get fairly big in a hurry, but just to help me try to speed up a little bit, based on the forced on the agenda, I'm actually going to put the locations that each one connects to as best I can under the scenario card, under the respective location. That way it just helps me speed up setup a little bit. But anyway, Norman and Tony are starting off at the crash site. So we'll take a look at this. It was risky business sailing over the Antarctic in a single airplane without any line of bases. H.P. Lovecraft at the Mountains of Madness. And we reveal Shroud 2, no clues. As an action, test Lore or Agility 3 to scavenge from the wreckage. If you succeed in the supplies recovered section of the campaign log, record spare parts. Max 1 success per campaign, shelter 0. So the crash site is most certainly not a place we want to set up camp if we can avoid it. But we also have to remember that if we get defeated in this scenario, we are suffering 2 trauma. So we need to be very careful about that. But anyway, that is initial setup. So I think we're ready to get into this scenario. We'll start this first scenario off with Tony. Actually, before we do that, I almost forgot. Because as the last part is setup, each investigator may choose one available member of the expedition team who's not crossed off to join them. Put the story asset for the chosen character into play in that investigator's play area. And I don't think these take up ally slots. They do not. So, who do we want to go with each of them? I think we'll send... Mostly because I'm scared very much of Norman's low agility. Well, he's got a way to defend himself right now, too. But, Tony technically should get first choice because he is the lead investigator. So, I will give him... his lore is decent. Well, let's give him... For now, I think we'll give him... Let's give him Dr. Malacina, actually. So we'll put 3 supplies on her in a second. And then remember, as an action, spend 1 supply and exhaust Dr. Malacina to heal 2 damage from an investigator or another ally asset at your location. So we'll get the 3 supplies for that. Actually, I'll get those out of my way for the time being. You go back up there. We use those as the supplies. I think those are technically secrets, but those will go on Dr. Cena. And then Norman with an agility value of 1. I think this is a pretty easy decision for him. I will give him Elia Ashavak, also with 3 secrets. As an action, spend 1 secret and exhaust Elia to evade. Attempt to evade with a base agility skill of 5. If you succeed, you may move to a connecting location. Anyu's got the scent. Haven't you, girl? 3 and 3 on Soak. So we'll get 3 secrets for Elia as well. There we go. Now that we've done that, now we're ready to get this show on the road. So we will start this scenario off with Tony, and we'll start down in his play area. I generally try to subscribe to the let's be able to defend myself from the word go. So for action 1, I will go ahead and pay 3 resources to play out Tony's 38 Long Colt, and then his reaction gives me another one at no cost. So I get to play both of those out. I'll get a total of 6 ammo, 3 for each. 4, 5, 6. So there's a total of 6 ammo, 3 each for each Long Colt. And then what is that? A lore or agility 3 test. Alright, I think for action 2, Tony will try to scavenge there. His lore is decent and he's at even. Is there anything I want to commit? Since I got a couple of weapons, I think I'll commit prepared for the worst and go up 1. Norman will sit tight. So Tony is up 1. That's a -1, and yes, these are the nice cast tokens from Orbits, which I will be using those along with some of the other components from the campaign. But anyway, -1 means I get to recover spare parts. So where do I record that? Supplies recovered. Where? There should be a section for. Oh, supplies recovered under Ice and Death. Duh. And that is spare parts. Okay. Okay. So now we've got that figured out. Action 3 for Tony, that's in the discard pile. Action 3 for Tony will actually take us over to the map. I probably am going to end up needing to move the camera further back at some point, but for now, we can bring Tony down to the frozen shores for action 3. They're now stretched off to the east, the low white line of the Great Ice Barrier. H.P. Lovecraft at the Mountains of Madness. This flips into Shroud of 2, 2 clues. Frozen Shores gets +2 Shroud if an encounter card is attached to it. The sun never quite sets over the horizon past the icy shoreline, painting the sky a myriad tapestry of beautiful colors. Shelter 2. But remember, we can't take advantage of that until we empty it of clues. There are the aforementioned 2 clues, and yes, I am using special Edge of the Earth components from Team Covenant, so these are the clues. We'll see the Doom in the first Mythos phase. Anyway, this puts a new location into play for us. Broad Snowdrifts. There's actually text on the unrevealed side that's relevant. As an additional cost for you to enter this location, investigators at your location must spend 1 per investigator clues as a group. I'll go through the flavor text when I move into that, but anyway, we will get another connecting arrow out for that. Actually, let's start to move the camera. I'm zoomed out as far as I can. We'll do that for now, but I suspect we'll have to crunch everything together, but I think that'll work for now. But anyway, that will do it for Tony. Norman, what direction do I want to move him in? Do I want to keep them together, or... Well, the first thing I'm going to do before I ponder that, because I probably am going to get Norman moving, since he doesn't need to be at the crash site after Tony recovered the spare parts, I will spend 2 resources to play the Shriveling off the top of Norman's deck. So I'll get the 4 charges out for that. I don't think we need to go through Shriveling because I've featured it a lot on this channel. I play a lot of Mystics on the channel. But anyway, 4 charges there. 2, 3, 4, and we need to reveal the top card of Norman's deck, so Norman reveals a Curiosity. While you have 4 more cards in hand, Curiosity gains Wild Card, gains Lore Will. While you have 7 more cards in your hand, it gains 2 of each. So basically it's basically up to a 3 Will, 3 Lore commit. That was action 1 for Norman. Action 2, let me go back into his hand. For 2 resources, I will go ahead and play out the... Actually, there is a temptation to go start gathering clues right away. At a Shroud of 3, Tony can... at a Shroud of 2, Tony is up 1, and him getting those clues isn't completely crazy. For now, anyway. So action 2, I think I'll move Norman up to the Precarious Ice Sheet. We'll take a look here. The ice sheet was very thin, with dark ground here and there visible. H.P. Lovecraft at the Mountains of Madness. This reveals into Shroud of 4, 2 clues. When you draw a Hazard Treachery while at Precarious Ice Sheet, add a Frost token to the Chaos Bag, cancel that card's effect and discard it. Group limit once per round. So I'll get the 2 clues out for that. And then that will put Icy Wastes into play. As an additional cost for you to enter this location, investigators at your location must spend 1 per investigator, so 2 clues, as a group. And the map is going to put that... Looks like diagonal, they suggest up here from the Precarious Ice Sheet. So let me get some of the other locations. I will need... those 2, and this connects, so actually I need, those 2, and Star goes down here as well. So those will go there. Then for these, Heart, and then Star is actually already down here, so I'll have to, so that's probably the one peril of doing the extra locations this way. I will now need to check both stacks to make sure. So I don't need that just yet. I don't think. I will if I move up to the Treacherous Path, but for now, I think that will work. But anyway, so Norman's up at the Precarious Ice Sheet for action 1. Action 2, he will investigate. He's up 1. The question is, do I want to burn a deduction and try to get both clues right away? I think, because that's a Shroud of 4, I think I do. So I will burn a deduction right away, going up 2. And this is actually action 3. See, I played Shriveling, then I moved, and now I'm investigating. Cultist can't be anything good. Well, it's a good thing I popped a deduction here. -2. If you fail, shuffle the top card of the Tekka-Lili deck into your deck without looking at it. If you can't, take 1 horror. So we do pass, which actually gets Norman both clues. And this is part of the reason why I'm glad I made sure I have extra sleeves in whatever style I'm using for a campaign. But anyway, that's like rambling aside, so that will do it for Norman. That will do it for the investigation phase. Enemy phase, we have no enemies in play right now, so we'll go ahead and flip everything over for both of our investigators. And then we'll move back up top for the upkeep phase. Tony will gain 1 resource and go to 6. Norman will gain 1 and go to 7. Tony will draw. Quick thinking. If this skill test is successful by 2 or more, after it resolves, you may immediately take an action as if it were your turn. This action does not count toward the number of actions you can take each turn. Norman does his draws a little bit differently in the upkeep phase because of forced learning. So he actually draws 2 cards and discards 1. First one is Curiosity, which we saw when it was on top of his deck. And the second one he has to choose from is True Understanding. Commit only to a skill test from an ability printed on a scenario card. If the skill test is successful, discover 1 clue at your location. I think I'm actually going to take True Understanding here, because I will theoretically be moving, so I can hopefully get clues that way, but we do need to reveal the top card of Norman's deck. He finds another lab assistant there. Maximum hand size increased by 2. Actually, we have 1 in Norman's hand anyway, so Mythos phase, Doom on the agenda, which is once again Edge of the Earth Special Doom from Team Covenant. Goes up to 1. And it would probably help if I have a little different layout for these. So I'm just going to I'm moving things around here a little bit. So we'll put the... Where do I want the Tekalili? I think I can put the Tekalili there. And then I have room for the encounter deck and the discard pile over here. So Tony draws Apeirophobia. Test Revelation test Will X, where X is your location's shelter value. If you fail, you must decide, choose 1. Take 1 horror for each point you failed by. Place 2 of your clues on your location or add a frost token to the chaos bag. The shelter value right now for Tony is 2. He would be testing even. I don't want to commit quick thinking to this because I'm not sure about getting a +2 effect out of there, or I'd have to commit Opportunist and Quick Thinking just to go up 2, and then I easily get boned out of both, so I'm just going to test at even. Rune cannot be good. Rune is -3. For each point you fail by, discard the top card of your deck. Draw each weakness discarded by this effect. So technically we fail by 2, because the -3 brings him down to -1, which then resets to a 0, so he still fails by 2. We do the Rune effect first, so we fail by 2, which means we discard the top 2 cards of the deck, but we draw each weakness we discard. So we lose 2 cards I'm not terribly busted up about losing, but that brings us back to the fail, so I don't really want to take 2 horror this early, especially not when I'm taking 2 trauma if I'm defeated. I can't place any clues on my location, so I think we just add a frost token to the chaos bag. So just to refresh your memory, I did go through this when I was doing the campaign intro, but when the frost tokens go into the bag, when they come out of the bag, it's a when you draw them during a test, it's a -1, then you draw again. If you draw a second frost token, then you auto-fail a test. So we'll mix that up. We've got a frost token in the bag now. That is done. Norman draws Ancient Evils. Revelation. Place 1 Doom on the current agenda. This effect can cause the current agenda to advance. Dark forces stir against you. If you do not act quickly, a sinister plot will be fulfilled. And then just to show it off, the 1 Doom flips into 2. So yeah, I really like the Team Covenant components for this game, but anyway, that will do it for the Mythos phase finally. Investigation phase now, and that actually didn't go too badly. So I think we'll go to Tony and we'll move into his play area. Let's see, looking at Tony's hand right now, action 1, I think we'll just investigate. We are up 1. A 0 gets him a clue. Action 2 will run that back. Cultist, which as we saw earlier, this time we do fail, so we shuffle the top card of the Tekalili deck into Tony's deck without looking at it, so I will just unsleeve this. So I had it sleeved in clear. I'm going to sleeve it in one of Tony's sleeves. Then we'll shuffle it in. Right. Then action 3 will run the investigate back again. So still up 1. +1 gets us the other clue this time. So we had to lose. So we had to lose an action. We had to basically lose an action in the middle of that. Fun. Anyway, that will do it for Tony. Norman's turn will take us over to the map. Action 1 for Norman will bring him up to the icy wastes after I drop 2 clues. In 10 more miles, we came to an unbroken waste virtually without signs of sentience artifice. H.P. Lovecraft at the Mountains of Madness. And we find Shroud of 2, 4 clues. Treat the modifier of the first frost token you revealed during each skill-tested icy wastes as -3 instead of -1. Oh, that's gross. We'll get the 4 clues out for that. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we have, I think we have 3 locations that we're putting into play, don't we? Yes. Okay, so where are these going to want to go? Remnants of Lake Camp is going to come down here. We'll go through all of these once we get them set up. Connecting arrow there. Wait, that's Icebreaker Landing. That actually wants to be up here. So that is in shot, but it's not well lit. Bring that. That works a little better, but I don't want to move the light too much further back because I'm already starting to tip toward the edge of the table there. And I think we'll just have to leave it there and live with it. Barrier Camp wants to be up about here, I think. And now Remnants of Lake Camp is down here, and there's a connection. Yeah, connection is here. Okay. So I think we've got everything. Actually, Barrier Camp doesn't connect to Rocky Crags. Well, it does connect, but it doesn't connect to Treacherous Path. Sorry, I know I'm being a little bit slow here. I want to make sure I have all my connections straight, though. So connect, and to connect down to Broad Snowdrift. Okay, so we've got all that straight. Anyway, let's go through our new connecting locations. So, Remnants of Lake's Camp. As an additional cost for you to enter this location, investigators at your location must spend 4 per investigator or 8 clues as a group. Icebreaker Landings will require 4 clues to enter. And Barrier Camp requires 8 as well. So for that was action 1. Action 2, I think we go to work on Icy Wastes. So Norman is up 3. -2 gets him a clue. And then we'll run that back. So action 3 will be to run that back. -1 gets him another clue. Anyway, that will do it for Norman. That will do it for the investigation phase. Enemy phase, still no enemies in play right now, so we'll go ahead and reset everything. Tony is in shot, but I can make that a little better. Reset everything here, and then we'll move back up top for the upkeep phase. Tony gains 1 resource and goes to 7. Norman gains 1 resource and goes to 8. Tony draws. A 45 Thompson, 6 cost to play, combat and commit. Uses 5 ammo. Action, spend an ammo to fight. You get +2 combat and deal +1 damage for the attack. Except the Long Colts, I think, will do a better job of that, so I'll probably use that as a commit. And then Norman has Lab Assistant to look at from Forced Learning, and I've got a plan to fight using lore. Deal +1 damage for this attack for each clue you have, max of 3. I think I'll keep I've got a plan and discard the Lab Assistant. Then at the top of Norman's deck we find No Stone Unturned, 2 cost to play, wildcard on commit. Choose an investigator at your location. That investigator searches the top 6 cards of his or her deck for a card, draws it, and shuffles. So that's on top of Norman's deck. Mythos phase, Doom on the agenda goes up to 3. Tony draws. Apeirophobia, he had this and it kind of caused him a problem. So shelter location is still 2 for him. He's still even. This time, do I commit the 2 and hope for something? Because I did just have to add a frost token to the bag. So yeah, I think I will commit the 2 and go up 2. I didn't want to do this last time, but now I think I need to. So basically, I'm hoping for a pull to get Opportunist back, and quick thinking of the same pull would give me an extra action. Elder Sign, look at that. So Elder Sign is a +2. Place 1 bounty on bounty contracts. Nice! Which means we will get a bounty. These are actually really nice bounty tokens, also from Orbit, so that'll bring me up to 7 bounties. But more importantly, it will do 2 more things. It will give me Opportunist back into my hand since I succeeded by 4, and then it will quick thinking our way over to the map so Tony can take an action. Quick thinking, Tony will spend his 2 clues so he can move down to the broad snowdrift, which will put these into play in a minute. So here, on the lofty ice barrier in the background, myriads of grotesque penguins squawked and flapped their fins. H.P. Lovecraft at the Mountains of Madness. Here we find Shroud of 1, 4 clues. When you successfully investigate broad snowdrifts, add 1 frost token to the chaos bag. Discover 3 additional clues at broad snowdrifts. Group limit once per game. That actually might be tempting to do, but I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself there, so we'll get the 4 clues out for that. And then we need the other 2 locations. So we've got Remnants of Lake Camp, which already connects. Then we've got Crystalline Caverns and Snowgraves. Where do those want to go? Okay, so Snowgraves wants to come down here, and here's where I am probably have to start scrunching up the map a little bit. So Snowgraves is down there. Crystalline Cavern, I think, is going to end up over here. Is that a connection to Treacherous? What is that? Treacherous Path? No, that is not a connection to Treacherous Path. So I don't need an up arrow for that just yet, but I do need a connecting arrow over here. So these will predictably also block us off from moving further. This takes 4 clues. And this takes 8. Okay, so that's all done. And Norman will draw, after I move that up to the discard pile. 0 visibility. Revelation, put 0 visibility into play in your threat area. As an additional cost for you to leave a location with a treachery attached to it, you must spend 1 action. Forced, at the end of your turn, discard test agility 2. If you succeed, discard 0 visibility. So as long as we keep Norman away from treacheries as best we can on locations, we'll be fine there. But anyway, that will do it for the Mythos phase. Investigation phase now, and I think we'll stay right here at the map and start with Tony. Action 1, we'll see if Tony can't grab at least some of these clues. So he is right now up 2. A skull is minus X, where X is half the shelter value rounded up. The shelter value right now is 2. So Tony does succeed by 1. And I think I will add a frost token to the bag to grab all 4 clues in one shot. That's probably, I would say that's pretty worthwhile. So we'll do that. Oop, those go into Tony's supply, not into Norman's token pool. Let's see, then what do I want to do with the other 2 actions? I could pop 4 clues to come down here, but that doesn't seem productive. I think a better use might be trying to get Tony and Norman back together, because a shelter of 4 is pretty good, but I feel like we can find something even a little better than that. But I have a feeling we're going to need the big clues for that, so I think we can tip. Or another idea is I try to get Tony and Norman back together, which wouldn't be an all terrible idea either. So I think I will have them. Unfortunately, Norman is going to be stuck at the Icy Wastes trying to get those clues off the location. We're not anywhere near close to where we need to be thinking about resigning yet. So I think for now, we'll move up. Actually, no, I think we're going to draw a card for action 2. So Tony will draw. I'd like to get a little more help with Cloovering. Scene of the crime, that could be helpful. Play only as your first action. Discover 1 clue at your location. 2 instead if there's an enemy at your location. Action doesn't provoke attacks of opportunity. Then for action 3, I will move up to the Frozen Shores, planning on being able to just get foe at the end of during the next round if I need to. But anyway, that will do it for Tony. We'll tip up to Norman. Technically, we can move down to his play area for his turn, but we might as well stay here because I'm hoping to get him moving. So anyway, action 1 will be to investigate. He's up 3 right now. -2 gets him a clue. Action 2 will run the investigate back. A 0 gets him another clue. And then action 3, I will move... Action 3, I will move down to the Precarious Ice Sheet with the goal of trying to get Norman and Tony back together. The only question is, in what direction do I want to move? But anyway, that will do it for the investigation phase. Enemy phase, we still have no enemies in play yet, so we'll go ahead, reset everything here. Up. And then we'll move back up top for the upkeep phase. Oh, before we do that, I almost derped and forgot. So at the end of the turn, I should have tested for Norman's 0 visibility. So we are down 1 because Norman's an old man who's not good at agility at all. So I will commit gross captivating discovery to get him to even. Yeah, I think that's what we do here. I think we just play Captivating Discovery to get Norman to even, or commit it to get him to even. Elder Thing cannot be good. Wait, why is there shouldn't be an Elder Thing in this bag. Okay, something's... I must have added it earlier and forgot. I must have added it during my last run and forgotten to take it out of the bag. So anyway, pretend I didn't pull that Elder Thing. An Elder Thing, though, almost certainly would not have let me discard 0 visibility, though. A 0, however, will let me discard 0 visibility. I know that's too many zeros, but anyway, that didn't change anything about the enemy phase because there were no enemies in play. So we're all reset. Now that I'm done being a derp on that, now we can move back up top for the upkeep phase. Tony will gain 1 resource and go to 8. Norman will gain 1 and go to 9. Tony will draw. Tekalili, oh joy. Place one of your clues on your location, and then place Tekalili on the bottom of the Tekalili deck. Still came that eldritch mocking cry. Tekalili, Tekalili. H.P. Lovecraft at the Mountains of Madness. So we put a clue back on Tony's location, which hopefully will still be reasonably easy to grab, but anyway. And this is getting re-sleeved in clear and going on the bottom of the Tekalili deck. And then for Forced Learning for Norman, he's got No Stone Unturned to choose from, and Extensive Research. Reduce the cost of 12 cost to play, 2 lore on commit. Reduce the cost to play it by 1 for each other card in your hand. Discover 2 clues in at your location. I think we'll keep that and discard No Stone Unturned. Then the top of Norman's deck is Anatomical Diagrams. 1 cost to play, will in combat and commit. Fast, play during any investigator's turn. Play only if you have 5 or more remaining sanity. Choose a non-elite enemy at your location. Until the end of the active investigator's turn, that enemy gets -2 fight and -2 evade. Mythos phase, the agenda advances. Under the ice. Hold on, come see this, one of the other team members shouts as you trudge ahead through the snow. You turn back and examine what they have found. A second set of tracks in the snow, but smaller, misshapen, almost impossibly so. What in the hell could have made those tracks? One of your party asks. You stand dumbfounded. Very little wildlife exists out here in the frozen wastes, and these tracks match nothing you've ever seen before. Nothing you can even imagine. You don't have to question what could make such tracks for long. A shape emerges from the erupting snow, twisted and deformed, like a splotch of ink spilled upon the canvas of reality. It makes a strange, almost familiar cry that is eaten by the howling wind. Lee! Lee! Then, with terrifying speed, it rushes toward you. Spawn a set-aside skittering nonsense at the lead investigator's location. Shuffle the remainder of the set-aside skittering nonsense enemies and the set-aside creatures in the ice encounter set into the encounter deck. Alright, so we'll take our first look at a... Where is it? There's creatures in the ice. I will need that in a second, but I want the skittering nonsense for now. Right? Yeah, that'll go to the lead investigator's location, so that'll go make friends with Tony in a second. Tony's like, hey, something for me to shoot. Well, as much as he might not want to, I think he kind of has to. Skittering Nonsense, 2/2/4, Hunter. When you defeat Skittering Nonsense, shuffle the top card of the Tekka-Lili deck into your deck without looking at it. If you can't, Skittering Nonsense attacks you. So that will go make friends with Tony. Then we shuffle all of this along with the discard pile. No. Shuffle the remainder of the set-aside Skittering Nonsense and the set-aside creatures in the ice. Okay, so that goes into the deck. Now, as part of bounty contracts, I can choose to put some number of bounties on Skittering Nonsense. And I think, once I get done shuffling this, I actually don't mind not shuffling the discard pile in, because that keeps two Apariphobias out, which could cause problems for Tony, but... Alright, so that's cut, and I will go ahead and put a bounty on Skittering Nonsense, which means this action is finally active. Anyway, we'll take a look at our new agenda. Agenda 2A, Into the White. Something dwells beneath the ice. Something you've never seen or heard before, not even in William Dyer's horrifying report. Something unreal. And we still have the forced effect about locations. So anyway, Tony draws. Another Skittering Nonsense. Oh, this is delightful. Put another bounty on that. And then Norman draws. Antarctic Wind. Revelation, attached to the nearest location without a copy of Antarctic Wind attached. Investigators at attached location cannot play cards or draw cards from their deck. Forced. At the end of the round, discard Antarctic Wind. Fortunately, we got rid of zero visibility, which is probably about the only reason I would have been... This is actually a big problem for Norman, but I'm not too bothered about it because I don't need to add a frost token to stop it, and Norman's leaving this turn anyway. So that will make our life very easy all around. But anyway, mild rambling aside there, let's move into the investigation phase, and now I will start off with Norman, and we'll start off over at the map. Alright, actions 1 and 2 will involve Norman moving to the frozen shores. And then action 3, he will actually take a shot with Shriveling at one of the Skittering Nonsenses in Tony's play area. So right now Norman is up 2. I'm not going to worry about engaging it because A, I don't have the actions to do it, and B, I don't have the... and B, I don't, like I said, A, I don't have the actions, and B, Tony can take a hit. So, well, also C, I want to spread out the Tekka-Lili cards in the deck. I don't want to have Tony take 2. I'd rather take 1 each. But anyway, we're up 2, and Tony can't commit. So, Norman is up 2, trying to do 2 damage to one of these Skittering Nonsense. Skull means Norman's taking a horror right off the bat because that is a bad symbol. Skull, as we saw, is half the shelter value of your location. Shelter value right now is 2, so shelter location is 1. Cast bag's over there. One of these skittering nonsense is dead. Tony loses the bounty. Yep, so that's gone. And then Norman will draw the top card of the Tekalili deck. I'll go ahead and unsleeve it. Put it in one of Norman's sleeves. And then we'll shuffle Norman's deck. Alright, then we need to reveal the top card of Norman's deck. So on top of Norman's deck we find Knowledge is Power. Fast play only during your turn. Choose a tome or spell asset you control or reveal one from your hand. Resolve its action or fast action ability. Resolve an action or fast action ability on that asset, ignoring all costs including its action cost, if any. Then if that asset was in your hand, you may discard it to draw 1 card. Which is not particularly useful because we don't have any tomes or spells in the hand that have an action. But anyway, that will do it for Norman. Tony will use his free action to take a shot at skittering nonsense with his 38 long Colts. So he gets +1 per bounty on the attacked enemy. So he gets +1. So he's at 6. 6 to 2, doing 2 damage, and he gets that back he gets a bounty back on bounty contracts and a resource out of that. So Tony is right now up 4. He'll also get a Tekalili card. I did forget to mention that. -2 defeats the skittering nonsense, so we'll get the contract back on bounty contracts. Go up to 9 resources. Skittering nonsense is defeated, but Tony will end up with a Tekalili card as well. So we'll go ahead and unsleeve this. Sleeve in one of Tony's sleeves. And that was action 1, so I'll shuffle this up. For action 2, Tony will see if he can yeet that clue right back off the location. So he's up 1. Do I just pop Opportunist here and basically know I'm not getting it back? Yeah, I think I do. If I want to try to get that, I'm going to try to get that clue off the location. So I'm going to commit Opportunist to go up 2 and hope for a pull to keep it. I want to get that clue off the location though before it gets a treachery attached to it. So up 2. A 0 loses us Opportunist, but it gets the clue back off the location. So that's very handy. Then action 3 will move back down to the broad snowdrifts. So anyway, that will do it for Tony. That will do it for the investigation phase. Let me check for any end of turns. Nope, threat area is all clear. Enemy phase, we took out both the enemies in play, so we'll go ahead and reset everything. Oop. And then we'll move back up top for the upkeep phase. Tony and Norman will each gain a resource and go up to 10 since they're both at 9. Tony will draw. Mauser C96, 4 cost to play, agility on commit, uses 5 ammo. As an action, exhaust Mauser C96 and spend 1 ammo. Fight, getting +1 combat and dealing +1 damage for this attack. If you succeed by 2 or more, either ready it or gain a resource. Then for forced learning for Norman, he's got knowledge as power to choose from. That should still be on top of the deck. And extensive research, which we have another one of these in hand. I will actually keep knowledge as power. And right now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so that'll be down to 5. But on top of Norman's deck we have the Harbinger. Oh joy. So Revelation, place this card on top of your deck. While the Harbinger is revealed and on top of your deck, cards in your deck cannot be searched, drawn, or manipulated in any way except by the below ability. 2 actions to discard the Harbinger. This ability may be activated while the Harbinger is on top of your deck, as if it was in your threat area. Fantastic. Well, I just figured out what Norman's turn was, and that's not going to be a hard one. But anyway, Mythos phase, first Doom on the new agenda. Tony draws. Through the Ice. Revelation, attached to the nearest location without a copy of Through the Ice attached. As an additional cost for you to enter or leave attached location, except by a scenario card effect, test Agility 2. If you fail, cancel the effect of the move, take 1 and 1, and discard Through the Ice. Oh, fantastic. So that's kind of going to screw up my turn something fierce. Norman draws. Manifestation of Madness. Delightful. 3/3/3, Monster Eidolon, Hunter. Forced. When Manifestation of Madness attacks you, shuffle the top 2 cards of the Tekalili deck into your deck without looking at them. For each card you cannot shuffle, Manifestations of Madness deals +1 damage and +1 horror from this attack. Oh joy. Do I want to attach any bounties to it? The question is, who is going to have to deal with that? I wanted to deal with the Harbinger this turn, but I don't think Norman can now. Because that'll take an attack of opportunity and give him 2 more Tekalili cards, which is highly disgusting in my opinion, but what do I know? Actually, Norman could conceivably get away from him. That might be worth trying, actually. So I will have... Do we evade? Well, let's put a couple bounties on. Yeah, we'll put 2 bounties on, actually, I only need 1 bounty right now on bounty contract. Okay, so that's it for the Mythos phase. Investigation phase, Norman's turn changed out. I think we can work with this, actually. So we'll start off with Norman, and we'll start off in his play area. Okay, I really need to take that Manifestation of Madness out, so that bounty's gonna end up going to waste, but I need this thing gone too much. So for action 1, Norman's going to spend 3 resources to play I've Got a Plan. So he's using Lore for this attack and dealing 4 damage, which is actually going to be overkill. So right now he's up 2. I will commit No Stone Unturned to get him up 3. +1 says Manifestation of Madness go bye-bye. So like I said, it's a waste of It's a waste of a bounty, but I need the Harbinger off of Norman's deck too badly. So for actions 2 and 3, he will discard it from the top of his deck. And at the top of his deck he finds another I've Got a Plan, which is very timely. But anyway, that will do it for Norman. Tony, I don't want Norman to have to try to move into Broad Snowdrifts with Through the Ice still attached to it. So I think for action 1, Tony's going to try to move into it. Basically, I want Tony to get rid of it. So right now, he's at agility 2. He is at even right now. So, yeah, we'll go ahead and if this succeeds, we'll move over to the map. If not, basically, we're not going to move over to the map until we succeed. So anyway, so Tony's at even, and I'm trying to fail. Another Elder thing in the bag. There's something in the campaign later that puts Elder things in the bag, and I forgot to take them back out when our last run was over. But anyway, which probably means this bag shouldn't be quite this big, most likely. But oh no, actually it is supposed to be a fairly sizable bag, just not with Elder things in it yet. A -1 is exactly what I wanted to see. So Tony does fail. Through the Ice is gone. Tony takes 1 and 1. Never been so happy for a failed test. Mostly because I didn't want Norman to have to fail that out. But anyway, that is 1 and 1, right? Yep, okay. So now we can actually move over to Tony's play area for the rest of his turn. Truth be told, I'm kind of just in a holding pattern right now until next turn when things are really hopefully going to start to happen. But anyway, that was action 1. Action 2, I think we'll just draw a card, so Tony will draw. At 41, Derringer uses 3 ammo. As an action, spend an ammo to fight, +2 combat for the attack. If you succeed by 2 or more, action deals +1 damage. And action 3, I think we'll just take a resource and go up to 11. I'm really hoping to see Leo at some point in this scenario, but anyway, that will do it for Tony. That will do it for the investigator phase, just checking for any end of turn effects, but threat areas are clear. Enemy phase, we still have no enemies in play, so we'll go ahead and reset everything. And then we'll move back up top for the upkeep phase. Tony gains 1 resource and goes to 12. Norman gains 1 and goes to 8. I was doing some first-rate math there. Tony draws. Tony's Quarry. Weakness, 431. Spawn location farthest from Tony Morgan. Aloof. Forced. After Tony's Quarry enters play, place 1 doom on it. Then place 1 resource on it from the token pool as a bounty. So I think we're probably going to end up doing bounty and doom. I think we'll do Mythos phase over at the map so I can show you where Tony's Quarry is going. And then Norman for forced learning I've got a plan and shortcut. Fast play only during your turn. Choose an investigator at your location. Move that investigator to a connecting location. I think we'll keep shortcuts, mostly so we can get moving here. And on top of Norman's deck, we'll find Dr. Milan Christopher. Where have you been all game? Get +1 lore. After you successfully investigate, gain 1 resource. And a lore on commit. But anyway, that will do it for the upkeep phase. Mythos phase will actually take us over to the map. So I haven't officially spawned him on the board yet, but looking for the location farthest from Tony. Here's my laser pointer. Let's see, so he's down here at the Broad Snowdrift. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think he goes up to Barrier Camp, so that's where I'm going to start him. But anyway. Okay, so now that we've done that, we'll put a Doom on the agenda, bringing us up to 2 on the agenda, 3 total because of Tony's Quarry. Then speaking of Tony, he draws Glacial Phantasm, Delightful, 4/4/2. Monster Eidolon, forced at the end of the enemy phase, if Glacial Phantasm is ready, move it once toward the location with the most investigators. In player order, each investigator at Glacial Phantasm's location or a connecting location shuffles the top card of the Tekalili deck into their deck without looking at it. Each investigator who can't takes 1 horror. Yeah, I think +1 per bounty. I think we'll put 3 bounties on... Yeah, we'll put 3 bounties on that Glacial Phantasm. That thing needs to die, like, pronto. That thing needs to die yesterday. And then Norman draws Ice Shaft. Revelation, test Agility 3. For each Frost token revealed during this test, take 1 damage. If you fail, take 2. Oh joy. So we could potentially take a lot of damage here. Norman is down 2. That is a huge, huge problem. And he's got exactly 1 agility that he wants to commit. So he's just probably going to be eating 2 damage out of this. Oh, come on, focus. There we go. Tentacle touched. I actually don't mind that too much because that only takes 2 damage, whereas the potential was there for 4. And I figured I was taking 2 anyway, so that's all done. That will do it for the Mythos phase. Investigation phase now, and I think we'll start with Norman, and we'll start right here at the map. Norman's turn begins, and we'll start off with a shortcut as a fast. You know this town like the back of your hand. How do you know an ice shelf like the back of your hand? But anyway, he'll move down to the Broad Snowdrift. Then for actual action 1, he'll spend the 8 clues as a group, right? Yes. Because Tony's there as well, so we'll pop his 4 clues to move up to the Crystalline Cavern. Parts, especially upper parts, seem to be of lighter colored rock than any visible strata on slopes proper, hence an evidently crystalline origin. H.P. Lovecraft at the Mountains of Madness. And this flips into Shroud of 5, 6 clues. As an action, test Agility 5 to climb up one of the crystalline walls in search of evidence. If you succeed, in the Supplies Recovered section of the campaign log, record Miasmic Crystal. Max 1 success for campaign. Spoiler alert, I don't think we're very likely to pull an Agility 5 success with these guys. They have a total of 3 agility between them. So yeah, that's not happening. But anyway, that was action 1 to move in. I think action 2, we go to work. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So extensive research would be a... So right now, 1 extensive research would cost me 2, 3, 4, would cost me all 8 of my resources, which actually might be worth it with a plan to grab the rest of those resources. Actually, no, for action 2, I think we'll spend 3 resources first to play out Milan. While I truly pray that this nightmare is just a singular abomination, I must admit that I am exhilarated by the possibility that this is but one specimen of a new genus. And then on top of Norman's deck we find another curiosity. We saw this earlier but discarded it on a forced learning. Action 3, Norman is up 1. I will commit deduction to go up 2, and I'm interested in getting 2 clues. Cast bag is back here. Frost token, which is a -1, and we pull again. Cultist, as we saw earlier, is -2 if you fail, and we will be. Shuffle the top card of the Tekalili deck into your deck without looking at it. So we get borked on that one pretty hard. So we'll unsleeve this. Resleeve, and that's Tony's sleeves. Let's get Norman's out now. There we go. All right. So after we flip over the top card of Norman's deck, I will update my running tally count that I'm keeping in the campaign log. All right, and then the top card of Norman's deck. An anatomical diagrams, which we saw earlier. Choose a non-elite enemy at your location. So Tony would have to eat an attack of opportunity to get there, which... might not be an all-terrible idea. I guess the question is, do I think I can take this out? I think I can, so I think we'll move down to Tony's play area for his turn. Action 1 for Tony will be to spend an ammo from the Long Colt into this Glacial Phantasm. He's going to commit Vicious Blow. So he's at... So the Long Colt gives him +1 combat for each bounty, and we put 3 on there. So 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 to 4. Tony's up 5, trying to do 3 damage. Skull, as we saw, is half. There's minus half the shelter value, which is 2. So the Glacial Phantasm takes 3 damage. Then action 2 will spend the last ammo from this Long Colt and try to take that Phantasm out. So this time we're at. So we're still up 4, but we're only doing 2 damage. That's a -1, which takes out the Phantasm. So that's dead. We get a bounty back. We actually get another 3 resources, so I'm going to swap that into a 5. I'll bring one of those in as a 10 resource marker. Then I think one comes back to bounty contracts as a bounty. And then action 3 will take us over to the map, but I'll meet you guys over there once I change out my camera battery. Action 3, Tony will go join Norman up at the Crystalline Cavern. That will do it for Tony. That will do it for the investigation phase. Once again, checking for end of turn, but we're all clear. Enemy phase, Tony's quarry moves over to the Icy Waste because we haven't put the Treacherous Path in play yet. Anyway, we'll ready everything over here, flip all of this over, and then we'll move back up top Oh, wait a minute. Tony should have actually had one extra action because I am an idiot. We used an attack on the enemy with a bounty, so for giggles... actually, no, this might be a fairly important action, so... This won't change anything about the upkeep phase, or about the enemy phase, obviously, but we'll swap out Tony's empty Colt with his Mauser C96. Just make sure we keep the guns flowing, so we'll get the last two ammo from the Colt. And then 3 more ammo for the Mauser. And then nothing would have changed about the enemy phase, because that was the only enemy in play. Now we'll move back up top for the upkeep phase. I apologize for the constant derping with Tony, but it's been a while since I've played him. Anyway, we are back up top for the upkeep phase. Tony will gain 1 resource and go to 12. Norman will gain 1 resource and go to 6. Tony will draw. Interrogate, Parlay. 2 cost to play, Will, Combat, and Lore on Commit. Parlay. Choose a humanoid enemy at your location and test a Combat 3. This test gets plus X difficulty, where X is the chosen enemy's damage value. If you succeed, discover 1 clue at your location and 1 clue at any other location, except that's kind of a laugh right now. I don't think we have a single humanoid enemy in the scenario right now. Not that I've seen anyway, so forced learning for Norman gives him a choice of anatomical diagrams and preposterous sketches. Play only if there's a clue on your location. Draw 3 cards. Yes, please. And then coming off of that, Feed the Mind. 3 cost to play, Lore on Commit. Uses 3 secrets. As an action, exhaust Feed the Mind and spend a secret. Test Lore 1. For each point you succeed by, to a maximum of 3, draw 1 card. Mythos phase, we got our 3rd Doom on the agenda. 4th because of Tony's Quarry. Tony will draw. Dark Aurora, oh joy. Revelation, test Will 3. For each frost token you reveal during this test, take 1 horror. If you fail, take 2. The phosphorant organism supplied light with vast effectiveness and doubtless atoned for the loss of familiar polar auroras of the outer world night. H.P. Lovecraft at the Mountains of Madness. Right now we're down 1, and I'm looking for Will, which I don't have. Norman, what do you have, Norman? Commit only to a skill test from an ability printed on a scenario card. That would get him to even, and we're still hoping for a pull at that point. I don't want to use preposterous sketches because I've got to plan around that. No, I think we're just going to test down 1 and hope for a pull. As much as I don't like the idea... Actually, this could be dangerous because I do have 2 frost tokens in the bag, and if I pull them both, Tony's defeated by trauma. So I almost think I do have to commit True Understanding to this test just to give... Well, even if I commit True Understanding, though, I'm just going to test down 1. Because here's the problem. Even if I commit True Understanding, I still can't survive the A, auto-fail of the double frost, and B, the 4 horror I would take from that, unless I put some of that on Mala, which I could do. But anyway, I'm getting a little ahead of myself there. So Tony pulls. A -1, so we do end up taking 2 horror from that, which brings him up to 2 defeated, from 2 defeated by sanity. So the True Understanding wouldn't have helped Tony anyway. Norman draws. Ice Shaft, delightful. So we're in a similar situation, but for agility. That's an even worse test to commit, or worse card to commit True Understanding to, so we will not commit. I'm probably going to have to use Mala this turn too, but I'm fine with that. So down 2. Skull is... Geez, Skull is a -4 here, so Norman is taking another 2 damage. Which, yeah, I definitely think... See, I think healing is going to be the order of the day for Norman this turn. So with that, let's move into a new investigation phase, and Tony is waiting for us in his play area. With Norman in as rough a shape as he is, no bonus points for guessing Tony's first action. We're exhausting Mala and spending a secret to heal 2 damage from Norman. Then Tony is going to draw a card, so Tony will draw. Another 41 Derringer, which isn't particularly helpful, so he'll draw another card. So this time he will draw Daring, which we need an enemy for. Actually, we need an enemy for a lot of Tony's stuff right now, but anyway, that's a very short, uneventful turn for Tony. Now let's go over to Norman in his play area. Now that Norman's back from death's doorstep, action 1, I've got a little bit of a larger plan, but I've got to do some setup for it first. We'll play Preposterous Sketches to draw 3 cards, since there are clues on our location. So we'll get Feed the Mind off the top. Livre des Bonnes, a Hyperborean Grimoire. Grimoire, actually. 2 will and a wild card on commit. As a fast action, I can exhaust it to either swap the top card of my deck with a card in hand, or exhaust it to commit the top card of my deck to an eligible skill test performed by an investigator, and Tekalili, oh joy, discard 1 card at random from your hand, place it on the bottom of the Tekalili deck. Still came that eldritch mocking cry. Tekalili, Tekalili. H.P. Lovecraft at the Mountains of Madness. That reminds me, I never did update Norman's Tekalili count, but he's at 1 now. So these are all in hand. I will need to discard at random. And we lose Feed the Mind. Okay, I can sort of live with that. But anyway, this gets unsleeved. Other way. And then this goes back to the bottom of the Tekalili deck. And then on the top of Norman's deck we find another Tekalili weakness. Delightful. Take 1 horror and then put it on the bottom of the deck in the same flavor text as before. So Norman, by my count now, Norman should be out of Tekalili weaknesses. We should only have 1 left in Tony's deck right now. Okay. So I'll cross that off and then we'll get a new top card for Norman's deck. So here on the top of Norman's deck we find Eureka! If the skill test is successful, the investigator performing this test searches the top 3 cards of his or her deck for a card, draws it, and shuffles. I think action 2, we will play out the Livre des Bonnes. And then action 3 will investigate. So right now we're up 1. I'll exhaust Livre des Bonnes to commit the Eureka that's on top of Norman's deck. So right now we are up 2 to get a clue, and we search the top 3 of our deck if we succeed. So I will actually move that off the top of the deck, but pretend it's still there. So we're up 2. Rune, as we saw, is... You've got to be kidding me. -3. Actually, we were at 6, 7 to 5. So yeah, we fail by 1, which means we have to discard the top card of the deck, draw each weakness discarded by this effect. So we discard Captivating Discovery, which we don't get. So on the top of Norman's deck, we find Curiosity. Delightful. But anyway, that will do it for Norman. That will do it for the investigation phase. No end of turn effects, so we're clear there. Enemy phase, the Tony's Quarry will move down to the Precarious Ice Sheet, coming for us. Then we'll flip everything over. We cannot make any headway on this location. That is twice we failed on this location, Norman. What the hell are you doing? But anyway, let's move back up top for the upkeep phase. Tony gains 1 resource and goes to 13. Norman gains 1 resource and goes to 3. Livre de Bone refreshes. Exhaustion markers are there. Tony draws. Watch this. Commit only to a skill test you're performing. As an additional cost to commit watch this to a skill test, spend up to 3 resources. If you succeed by 1 or more, gain twice that many resources. You do not need to be standing up like that. Then Forced Learning, Norman has Curiosity to choose from, and another Feed the Mind. We'll actually take Feed the Mind this time. And then on top of Norman's deck we find Tooth of Esli. 3 cost to play, Will on commit. You get +1 Will and Agility when resolving an ability on a Treachery card. After you succeed at a skill test while resolving an ability on a Treachery card, exhaust Tooth of Esli to draw 1 card. Mythos phase, 4 on the agenda, 5 in play because of Tony's Quarry. Tony draws. Whiteout, attached to your location. Fantastic! Each investigator gets -1 to all stats. At the end of the round, discard Whiteout. So it's basically the whippoorwill of this location. Delightful. Or of this campaign. Delightful. Norman draws. Ancient Evils. Place a Doom on the agenda, which brings us up to 5 on the agenda. 6 because of Tony's Quarry, and we're advancing this round. Fantastic. So that brings us back to the investigation phase. And, yeah, could we have had this go any more wrong today? I think Tony's probably going to have to leave and go deal with the... I plan on meeting Tony's Quarry. So, I think we'll head over to... Actually, let's start with Norman, and we'll start in his play area. Right, Norman's turn is basically going to consist of us drawing cards so we can try to activate extensive research a little bit more easily. So for action 1, he'll spend his 3 resources to play Feed the Mind. We'll get 3 secrets for that in a second. We can exhaust that and test lore 1, and for each point we succeed by to a maximum of 3, we'll draw a card. So I'll only put 2 resources on, or 2 secrets on there. Because for action 2, I'm going to put an exhaustion token on there. So right now I'm 3 to 1. I'm up 2. Where's the bag? Here's the bag. Cultist is... Are you kidding me? -2. If you fail... So actually we do draw... We actually succeed by 0 somehow. Seriously, Norman? You can't do anything right today? It's gonna be one of those days. Fantastic. Action 3, take a resource. Wonderful. Tony, I think, is going to have to go meet the meet Tony's quarry, but anyway. Action 1. Joy. I think Tony's turn is going to take us over to his play area. We are advancing the agenda this turn, and I can't stop it. So for action 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Action 1, I think for actions 1 and 2. Oh, this should be unexhausted as well. Or do I heal Norman again? Well, now that he's not on death's doorstep, I'm not as worried about healing Norman. So for action 1, I think I'll draw a card. So Tony will draw. 21 or bust. One at a time, reveal random tokens from the Chaos Bag until you choose to stop. Treat each bad symbol except for the tentacle as a 5, the tentacle as a 10, and the Elder Sign is either a 1 or an 11. If the combined total of these resources, or these tokens, ignoring plus or minus, is 18 or less, gain 4 resources, 19, gain 5, 20, gain 6, 21, gain 9. Action 2 will draw another card, so Tony will draw. Another 45 Thompson, which we don't need. And then action 3 for giggles, let's play a little blackjack while we're busy freezing our heads off. So once again, we're pulling tokens from the Chaos Bag until we choose to stop. So, first token up. Is a 1. Yep. So, wait. Reveal random tokens from the Chaos Bag until you choose to stop. At the combined value, so I think we just ignore plus or minus. So that's a 1. Next up. Okay, that's so 5, so 6. I don't know how frost tokens interact with that. I'm going to rule that's a 1, so 7. $12. Elder Sign is a 1 or 11, so that's actually 13 right now, because an 11 would make us bust. There's a 0, so we're still on 13. $14. There we go. 19, and I think that's enough of that. So we get another 5 resources out of that. So 3, 5. Tony goes up to 16. And that will do it for Tony's turn. We played a little blackjack while we were busy freezing. So that's it for the investigation phase. No end of turn. Enemy phase. Tony's quarry, if I can ever get a hold of it, moves to the crash site. So we'll reset everything here, including our investigator minis. Then we'll move back up top for the upkeep phase. Tony gains 1 resource and goes to 17 with almost nothing to do with them right now. Norman gains 1 and goes to 2. Tony draws. Another watch this, which I think brings him up over hand size, doesn't it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yep. 45 Thompson can go away. And then for Forced Learning, Norman has Tooth of Esley and another shortcut. I'll keep the shortcut, even though I don't think we're moving. And then on top of Norman's deck, we find another Shriveling, which I don't particularly need. Wish there was a way I could manipulate the top of Norman's deck, but anyway. End of round whiteout goes away. And then Mythos phase, we are advancing the agenda thanks to Tony's Quarry. Okay. Alright, looking here. It dwells inside. These things, these manifestations, they're not beasts or even alien creatures like those Dyer and Danforth encountered in their last expedition. You're not even sure they are entities at all. They have no shape, consisting of an almost protoplasmic substance that seeps back into the ice when harmed or whenever you escape their clutches. Given the persistence of these entities and the inclement, deadly conditions of Antarctica, you know you won't survive the night without finding shelter. Just as you are pondering what your next move should be, the ice beneath you rumbles with tremendous force, letting out a terrifying groan. An earthquake? One of your party asks over the raucous noise. No, that's impossible, another replies. You share a dreadful glance. Could it be one of those things? Spawn the set-aside Terror of the Stars enemy at the revealed location with the highest shelter value, which right now is 8, so we get the Terror of the Stars. "433, Hunter Massive. Terror of the Stars gets +3 per investigator health. While Terror of the Stars is ready, investigators cannot resign at its location or discover clues at its location. That is a problem. So we'll put 3 bounties on that thing because we need that thing gone like yesterday. Now I want to be able to hit it with Tony's 38 Long Cold with 3 good shots. And victory 1 along with 2 and 2. So it's massive and technically engaged with... So it's technically on the location, but I'm going to leave it here since it's got both of us. 2 and 2 is a huge problem, so Tony cannot take an attack unless I throw Mala in front of it, which I don't want to do for obvious reasons. But anyway. Running out of time, you don't say. The sun hangs low in the sky, but never sets. Your party is exhausted from the long, arduous day. Though the sky is never plunged into the dark of night, you know it's only a matter of time before you are forced to make camp. Gee, you think? And then still the same forced about the entering clues, or about entering locations. So anyway, encounter cards now. Tony draws. Ancient Evils, delightful. So that's another one, so that's 1 doom in play right away. Norman draws. Ice Shaft, Revelation, test agility 3. For each frost token you revealed during this test, take 1 damage. If you fail, take 2. Delightful. So Norman is down 2. I've got to commit... I don't even want to commit True Understanding because I can't discover a clue anyway. Let's see if Tony can give him some help. He's got agility, but he can't commit it. Right, so Norman is down 2, and we've got enough frost tokens in the bag that if we pull both of them, he's defeated by damage. Skull is -4, so he just takes another 2 damage. Yeah, we need to get rid of that Terror of the Stars right now, or the scenario is just going to be over right here, and we're going to be off to a very delightful start this campaign. But anyway, that will do it for this, for the Mythos phase. Investigation phase, and I think our objective just got really simple. Put damage on the target. So, Norman, let's start in your play area and see what we can do about him. We'll start with a Shriveling at the Terror of the Stars, committing shortcut to go up 1. Can Tony give him any help? During an attack or... let's give him against an enemy. If somebody fails, a Retaliate's going to take them out. I don't want to give that to Norman, though. I will give it to Norman, actually. I will give him an extra 3. So Tony will draw the card if after the test ends. Yeah, during an attack or evasion attempt. So this is an attack attempt against an enemy. So right now Norman's at 4, 5, 8 to 4. He's up 4. Cultist, which makes Norman take a horror. As we saw earlier, that's -2. If he fails, shuffle the top card of the Tekalili deck into your deck without looking at it. So the Terror of the Stars does take 2 damage. So we'll get the 2 damage out for that. Then we're actually going to commit a rare plan. So I'm going to exhaust Elia for action 2 and try to evade the Terror of the Stars with a base agility of 5. So for once, Norman is actually up 2. And that is where he has to test. Unless Tony's got some surprise agility that he can give. He does not. So Norman is up 2, trying to evade. Cultist is -2, but that doesn't fail us this time. So that goes onto the location. Technically it's supposed to be on the location anyway, but we're just going to pretend that it's going to be right here in the threat area, in both threat areas since it's massive. But anyway, then for action 3... do I just investigate up 1? Yeah, I think I do. So we'll investigate up 1, trying to start getting clues off that location. Stayed on the table, but -3 means Norman has to discard the top of card of his deck because he failed by 2. Shriveling and a Drawn to the Flame go. Norman, that hurts. On top of the deck we find Crack the Case, which is El Hot Garbaggio right now. So I need to go find that rune that went falling. Ow! There it is. Norman, we need to have a chat after this scenario is over. But anyway, that will do it for Norman's turn. Tony, however, now actually has something he can do with his mess of resources. 17, he'll go down to 15 for his first action. To play Scene of the Crime, he can actually discover 2 clues because there is an exhausted enemy at his location. That's still very much not a humanoid, so interrogate is what we like to call El Hot Garbaggio again. Then he'll use his action, his additional action, to attack the Terror of the Stars using his Long Colt, so he gets +1 per bounty. He's put 3 on it, so it's 8 to 4. He's up 4, and he will commit, watch this, to go up 5 and sink 3 resources into it. So he's up 5, trying to do 2 damage, and get 6 resources back. A 0 puts another 2 damage on that and gets 6 resources back. So we'll trade that out for a 3. Let's see, so from 11, or from 12, he should be at 18 right now. Sorry, math is hard today. So that was his bounty action, actually. Action 2 will run the Long Colt attack back. So still same situation, up 4. Does he have anything he can commit? He'll commit another watch this and put 3 resources into it because why not? So up 5 still. A 0 puts another 2 damage on the Terror of the Stars and gives Tony another 6 resources as if he needs more. Alright, so 3, so I had 13, 15, another 6 would bring him up to 21. As if Tony needs more resources today. And he's got hardly anything to do with them, but anyway. Then action 3. Take another shot with the Long Colt, so he's still up 4. I'll commit Interrogate to go up 5. That's a -4, but that's still good for another 2 damage. Norman, take notes. This is how you spend your time being valuable in this campaign. Anyway, that will do it for Tony. That will do it for the investigation phase. Enemy phase, Tony's quarry comes down and makes friends. So we'll go ahead and reset everything. We'll bring Terror of the Stars over. Back into the threat area. And we'll reset everything here. And we'll move back up top for the upkeep phase. I glossed over the Terror of the Stars in the enemy phase because Norman did actually manage to exhaust it, so he's not being completely useless, just mostly useless, but anyway. Norman gains a resource, goes up to 3. Tony gains 1 and goes up to 22, as if he needs something to do with those resources. Tony draws. Another Mauser. This actually isn't a terrible thing right now. And then Norman, for Forced Learning, has Crack the Case to choose from. And Drawn to the Flame. Draw the top card of the encounter deck. Then discover 2 clues at your location. That's a pretty easy decision. And then on top of the deck, Norman has anatomical diagrams. That could be very helpful right here, but I'm getting a little ahead of myself there. Mythos phase, Doom goes up to 2 on the agenda. Tony draws. Kindred Mist. Attached to the nearest location without a copy of Kindred Mist attached. Forced. When one or more cards from the Tekalili deck would be shuffled into your deck while you are at attached location, draw them instead, placing them on the bottom of your deck instead of the bottom of the Tekalili deck. Discard Kindred Mist at the end of the round. Delightful. And Norman draws. Dark Aurora. Revelation test Will 3. For each Frost token revealed during this test, take 1 horror. If you fail, take 2. Let's see, Norman is up 1 right now. I will commit True Understanding to go up 2, even though I can't discover the clues. Because I'm in a situation again where a Frost and a fail defeats Norman by... Actually, no, I'm not in a situation where a Frost and a fail does get Norman. No, it doesn't. I'm stupid. Even with 2 Frosts and a fail, he would have 1 sanity left. But I don't want to take a chance on failing this right now. Anyway. So Norman passes. He would discover the clue, except he can't because the Terror of the Stars says you can't discover clues at the location. Investigation phase now. Tony, we need to do something about that Terror of the Stars. So let's get down to your play area. All right, Tony. We'll spend a charge from the Mauser and exhaust it, so we'll get an exhaustion token for that. Take a shot at the Terror of the Stars. So I'm at 5, 6. I'm up 2. I'll spend I'll spend both my 41. I'll commit both my 41 Derringers to go up. Let's see, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'll go up 4, trying to take that out. A 0 means Terror of the Stars goes bye-bye. Which means we get 3 more resources thanks to bounty contracts. And we didn't defeat it with the Long Colt because we were out. So anyway, bounties are all gone. Terror of the Stars is in the victory display. Those are in the discard pile, and that was Tony's. That was Tony's extra action. I flipped over the wrong token. So anyway, then I will play. Then for action 1, I'll just draw a card. Actually, no. For action 1, I'm going to play something out. I'll go ahead, spend 4 resources down to 18. So 3 and 3. We'll discard the Long Colt and play out another Mauser. We'll get the 5 ammo for that. So this is actual action 1. That was a bounty action that I used earlier. Action 2 will draw a card, so Tony will draw. Tekalili. Revelation, take 1 damage. Then on the bottom of the Tekalili deck. Well, at least we're rid of that, so that's something, I guess. And we're also empty of... We should be empty of Tekalili cards in Investigator decks as well. Then action 3 will draw another card, so Tony will draw. Quick thinking. If the skill test is successful by 2 or more, after it resolves, you may immediately take an action as if it were your turn. Doesn't count. Anyway, that will do it for Tony. Now, Norman, let's do some more useful things, shall we? Action 1, we're actually going to exhaust Feed the Mind. So we're at 5-1, we're up 4 on the test going into the bag. A 0 actually means Norman gets to draw 3 cards, so we'll get the anatomical diagrams. Card 2. Hawkeye folding camera, which is El Hot Garbaggio right now. I'm not going to bother going through it because it's not relevant right now. And Occult Lexicon, also basically irrelevant. So those come to the hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Top of the deck we find Occult Invocation. As an additional cost to play it, discard up to 2 cards from your hand. Fight using lore instead of combat and get +1 lore and deal +1 damage per card discarded. Then for action, that was action 1. Action 2, Norman will play Drawn to the Flame, so we'll get the top card of the encounter deck, then discover 2 clues. So we will find Skittering Nonsense, Delightful. When you defeat it, shuffle the top card of the Tekalili deck into your deck without looking at it. We saw that earlier. So that will engage to Norman. We'll get 2 clues off the location, finally. And then we will 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we'll put a Charge of Shriveling into it. So we're up 2. That should have been unexhausted as well. So we're up 2 trying to take out that Skittering Nonsense. Skull is actually does a damage, or does a horror to Norman, and -X, where X is half the shelter value of your location rounded up. So that's a -4. Come on, Norman. Can you do anything right today? So Norman fails the test, which is unfortunate. So I think it was action 1. This was action 3. So that will do it for the investigation phase. No end of turn effect. Enemy phase, Norman takes 1 and 1, and he's got to shuffle the... Oh, this is bad. Because he would have to shuffle the top card of the Tekalili deck into his deck without looking at it, but because Kindred Mist is at our location... Let me just refresh my memory here. When one or more cards from the Tekalili deck would be shuffled into your deck while you're there, draw them instead, placing them on the bottom of your deck instead of the bottom of the Tekalili deck. So Norman draws this, and now he's in a situation where a 1 damage card would defeat him by damage. Revelation, if it's your turn, lose 1 action. Otherwise, lose 1 action during your next turn. Place Tekalili on the bottom of the Tekalili deck. So it is technically still... No, this is during the enemy phase. This actually still is during his turn. So he loses an action that he doesn't have to lose. So that goes on the bottom of his deck instead. Actually, wait a minute. Why am I shuffling that? I didn't defeat it. I'm so... Wait. Yeah, no, I'm very dumb. That actually shouldn't go into his deck, so I will reshuffle the Tekalili deck. I actually didn't defeat it, and the skull is only a -4. Okay, so he doesn't actually take the... He doesn't actually get it in when an enemy attacks. I derped on that very heavily. But anyway, so we do kind of dodge the bullet there. He did take the 1 and 1, which does put Norman in very deep peril. But anyway, getting a little bit ahead of myself there on that. So we did take the 1 and 1 from the attack, and then Tony's Quarry would move to the Broad Snowdrifts. But anyway, that will do it for the enemy phase. Now that I'm done being an idiot. For now, anyway. We'll go ahead and re-ready everything. And then we'll move back up top for the upkeep phase. Tony gains 1 resource and goes to 19. Norman gains 1 resource and goes to 4. Tony draws. Lucky cigarette case. After you succeeded a skill test by 2 or more, exhausted to draw 1 card. Norman has occult invocation to choose from and another occult invocation, so I'll discard 1 of them. And then on top of Norman's deck we find Preposterous Sketches, only if there's a clue on your location to draw 3 cards. Mythos phase, we go up to 3 doom on the agenda. Tony draws. Antarctic Wind, delightful, can't play cards or draw from their deck. At the end of the round, discard it, which reminds me this should have been gone at end of round as well. And then Norman draws. Whiteout, so each investigator gets -1 to everything. At the end of the round, discard it. Delightful. Anyway, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So right now that would cost me 5. I could probably finish this turn at last. Anyway, in the investigation phase now, we'll move over to Tony's play area. Action 1, Tony will engage the skittering nonsense away from Norman. That should have been, well, that's going to be exhausted here anyway. Action 2, he'll spend another bullet from the exhausted Mauser to attack the skittering nonsense that he just engaged. So he's at 5 to 2, he's up 3, will commit quick thinking to go up 4, and hopefully get an extra action out of this. So let me just make sure I've got this right. 4 from Whiteout, 5 on the Mauser, 6, yeah, 4. -2 says Skittering Nonsense is dead. Tony gets the top Tekalili weakness. Good Lord. How much deck to shuffle there? And then Tony gets an additional action, which will be... There's not much I really want to do. Actually, I take that back. We will go ahead and play the Lucky Cigarette Case out. So this was a fast action, essentially. And then what do we even want to do right now? We can't play anything from the top of the deck. So that should be unexhausted as well. But it's not really going to matter, most likely. 6, 7... And then Tony, I guess we'll just... Well, the quarry's coming in this round anyway, so I'm not too worried about that. I think we'll just take a resource with Tony for action 3. And that will do it for Tony. The question here is... I think I can make this work for Norman, actually. So, we're not going to bother going to his play area because his turn is going to be so fast. Resource, resource, spend all 6 of them to finally play out one of his copies of Extensive Research. This took me long enough. Nothing in here either. How many do we have left? See the wall behind you? Actually, the wall behind him is empty at last. But anyway, that will do it for Norman. That will do it for the investigation phase. Enemy phase, Tony's quarry moves in, but it is aloof. So we'll move in and make friends. It won't make friends because it's aloof. So no attacks there to worry about. And we'll go ahead and flip all of these over. And then we will move back up top after I flip over the investigator mini cards for the upkeep phase. Tony will gain 1 resource and go up to 19. Norman will gain 1 resource. Tony will draw. Tekalili, take 1 damage and then place it on the bottom of the Tekalili deck. Get that clear sleeve back out. And then Norman has preposterous sketches to choose from, and Tooth of Esley. We'll keep the tooth, I guess, and discard preposterous sketches. Then on the top of Norman's deck we find Crack the Case, which is also useless after we've discovered the last clue off the location. End of round, the 2 treacheries both go away. Mythos phase, Doom goes up to 4 on the agenda. Tony draws. Polar Mirage. Attach to nearest location with at least 1 clue and without a copy of Polar Mirage attached. Forced, after you discover or take control of 1 or more clues at attached location, discard each non-weakness card in your hand. Discard Polar Mirage, except I don't think we really care about this too much. And then Norman draws. Another Dark Aurora. Test Will 3. For each Frost token revealed during this test, take a horror. If you fail, take 2. So Norman right now is up 1. I will commit Hawkeye Folding Camera to go up 2 and Tooth to go up 3. And Tony doesn't have anything, so Norman is up 3. Unfortunately, we are in a situation... Well, we can put it on Milan, so never mind. I was going to say we're in a situation where a double pull and a fail... actually, now a single pull and a fail defeats Norman by sanity, but actually it doesn't because we've got Milan who can be a meat shield. So we're up 3. -1 makes all that moot anyway, so we discard that. Then into the investigation phase, I'm just double checking the act. It's at the same location and no clues. Yep. So we'll move down to Norman for what's going to be a very short investigation phase. I think Norman has probably had enough of me screaming at him for being useless at this location. But we are going to use the action on the act to resign. So if each investigator is at the same location and that location has no clues on it, resign. You set up camp. Each investigator resigns, so we're both going to resign here. And the objective was to find somewhere safe to set up camp. If each undefeated investigator has resigned, advance. The higher the shelter value of the location they're resigned at, the better, and our shelter value right now is 8. Under the stars, exhausted and terrified by your ordeal, you decide this is as good a place as any to make camp for the night. Perhaps tomorrow you can salvage some kind of academic value out of this hellish journey. But for now, such things seem trivial. Survival is the only thing on your mind. R1. So let's move back up top for R1. Alright, we are into Resolution 1.
Resolution 1. As you make camp, you are haunted by memories of the creatures you encountered in the icy wilds. Such entities should not exist. Not even Dyer's report mentions anything of the kind. Grim silence settles over the expedition team as you set up shelter. No one speaks of what they saw in the frozen wilderness. No one speaks of the awful sounds those monsters made. You can only hope that this camp is secluded enough to avoid the attention of those things, whatever they may be. In your campaign log, write camp, hyphen, and next to it, record the name of the location the investigators resigned at. This location is referred to as the investigators' camp for the remainder of Ice and Death. Record the camp's shelter value in parentheses next to its name. Each investigator earns experience equal to the camp's shelter value to a minimum of 3, plus the victory X value of each card in the victory display. In the expedition team section of the campaign log, record the amount of damage and horror on each partner asset in play. Proceed to checkpoint 1, the disappearance. Do not clean up the game yet.
Before we jump into that, we've resigned at the Crystalline Cavern, which had a shelter value of 8, plus 1 experience for, I think it was 1, right? Yeah, 1 for the Terror of the Stars, so we have 9 total experience, and now I think we're ready for checkpoint 1, the disappearance.
Checkpoint 1, the disappearance. Wunderbar. The disappearance 1. Your sleep is anything but pleasant. The maddening cold bites at your flesh, and the ever-howling wind plays tricks on your mind, conjuring images of misshapen, inky forms bursting out of the ground and rending your party whole. Just as you were finally beginning to leave such horrid thoughts behind, your rest is shattered by a startled cry. You awaken to find your camp in shambles, and several of your companions missing. To your dismay, footsteps lead away from the relative safety of your camp and into the frozen wilds beyond. Find and gather the story assets corresponding to the surviving members of the expedition team. Shuffle them and randomly select a number of them equal to your camp's shelter value. Those characters are safe. If every surviving member of the expedition team is safe, proceed to the disappearance 2.
Alright, so I'm going to pause for a reason. Because our shelter value was 8 at the Crystalline Cavern, so this is the rest of the team. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So everyone is safe, which means we get to go to the disappearance 2.
The disappearance 3.
Nope. Come on.
The disappearance 2.
There we go.
You spend the next day resting and preparing for the next leg of your journey. Do not clean the game up yet. Skip Ice and Death Part 2 in its entirety. The missing team members surely could not have survived the night. In the expedition team section of the campaign log, cross off the name of each section who is marked as MIA, or of the character who is marked as MIA. Proceed immediately to checkpoint 2, the attack.
Oh, shut up. Okay. So checkpoint 2, the attack. So we're skipping Ice and Death Part 2 entirely. So checkpoint.
The disappearance 4.
Nope. It's ice. Oh, okay. It's actually in after part 2. Never mind.
Checkpoint 2. The attack. The attack 1. You barely have time to rest before the sound of something erupting out of the ground nearby shakes you to your core. Massive tremors follow, sending cracks through the ice all around you. Then, that noise, that insipid piping, Tekalili, Tekalili. Whatever those creatures you encountered earlier were, you are sure they came from under the ice, breaking or seeping through to reach the surface. They must somehow live deep under the glacial crust of Antarctica. These quakes can only mean one thing. Your imagination stirs with visions of these monsters bursting forth all around you, creeping into your eyes and mouth, controlling you. It is clear you aren't safe here any longer. The investigators must decide. Choose one. Run for your lives. You'll skip the next part of the scenario. Proceed to the attack 2. Stand and fight. You will play the next part of the scenario. Skip to the attack 3 if you wish to do so immediately, or the attack 4 if you wish to take a break and proceed the next time you play. The attack 2...
No. Shut it. Okay. So, the way this first scenario went, we ended up with Norman uncomfortably close, mostly because he was pretty much useless this scenario, but I almost feel like I just want to Gitfo here, because we're probably... The way the scenario went, I'm not sure I completely trust both of these investigators in a fight. Tony I probably would trust, but Norman got way too close to being defeated by damage in that scenario twice for me to want to take a chance on this. So I think we're just going to proceed to the attack 2.
Hastily grab what you can and flee the camp. You don't stop running until you've put many miles between you and the pursuing creatures. By the time you're able to set up camp again, it is past midday, and your team is utterly exhausted. Your new camp is makeshift and haphazard, but it will have to do. Skip Ice and Death Part 3 in its entirety. In your campaign log, record, the team fled to the mountains. Clean up the game. You will not return to this scenario for the remainder of the campaign. Proceed to Interlude 1, Restful Night.
Which we will be proceeding to Interlude 1, Restful Night. Do I want to do that now, or... Yeah, I think we better do that now. So let's move in to Interlude 1. Where is it? Is it... Okay, hold on. Out of the intro. Doo-doo-doo. Here we go. Interlude 1. Restful Night. Okay, so... Hold on. Something's not right.
If Avery Claypool is alive...
Nope. Here we go. Restful... Okay.
Interlude 1, Restful Night. Restful Night 1. Safe at last, you and the remaining members of the expedition take stock of your situation. You have lost several members of the team, but your numbers remain strong. Part of you knows that staying any longer would prove foolish or deadly, but a great many questions crowd your thoughts, demanding answers despite your worries. What were those uncanny, phantasmal creatures? What happened here after Dyer's expedition left the icy wastes behind? You and the others discuss the situation at length and consider various plans. Some believe in the total abandonment of the expedition, but to return empty-handed now would prove disastrous for the university, frustrate the scientific community, and possibly cost the remaining crew their careers. After all, very few believed Dyer's outlandish claims. Who would believe this? In the end, you decide to press onward. Another flight is out of the question, of course. That thing in the sky must still be out there. It was a miracle you survived one airplane crash, let alone two. No, there's only one way to reach the site described in Dyer's report now. You must travel on foot. The decision made, you retire to get what meager rest you can before the grueling trek ahead. You only have enough time to check on a few team members, regardless of whether they are alive or crossed out. One at a time, choose and read 3 of the sections below. 4 instead if the team fled to the mountains. If the game effect of the chosen section cannot be performed, it does not count toward this total, and you may choose a new section instead. Once you have read the appropriate number of sections, proceed to Restful Night 2.
Okay, so because we fled to the mountains, we decided we are not standing and fighting. We do get to check on 4 of our companions. So let's go ahead and pay a visit first. Let's go check on William Dyer, even though he's dead.
If William Dyer is crossed out, you take a moment...
And actually, before we jump in further, you may have noticed in the background that, as usual, I've got things moving around a little bit because I am starting to clean up. I think this campaign runs a little bit bigger than usual, so we will go ahead and... So I'm just trying to mitigate the damage here, but there's a lot going on. Anyway... Now that I'm done with that mild ramble, on with the interlude.
To pour through some of the professor's old sketches, which he brought with him in the event they might prove useful. As you suspected, none of the creatures he depicted looked anything like the things you saw. But just as you were about to give up, you find several sketches of the city he claims to have found beyond the dark, jagged mountains. These depict an enormous archway emblazoned with 5 glyphs surrounded by a 5-pointed star. Below the archway, or perhaps behind it, looms something grotesque. The lines of the sketch disintegrate into a tangle of light strokes and splashes of ink you can scarcely describe. Several more creatures with barrel-shaped bodies and starfish-like heads, the alien elder things Dyer described in his report, flank the archway, looking on reverently, their wing-like appendages spread forth in reverence. You wish you could ask Dyer himself what this may mean, but sadly, it's too late for that. You collect his sketches and bring them with you, hoping they might come in handy later. Any one investigator may add the Dyer's Sketches story event to their deck. This card can be found in the Memorials of the Lost encounter set. It does not count toward that investigator's deck size. If Avery Claypool is alive...
You shut it for a second. Let's take a quick look at Dyer's Sketches. 2 cost to play, lore, wildcard on commit, fast to play during any open player window, draw 3 cards. Professor Dyer kept many sketches depicting the creatures he encountered. Norman's got a lot of ways to draw cards, so I'm actually going to give that one to Tony. Just because Tony does not have a lot of draw in his deck. and I could really use some. Let's see, who else do we want to check on? Norman was actually, Elia was pretty valuable to Norman, so let's go pay him a visit.
If Elia Ashavak is alive,
He is.
you find Elia on the outskirts of the camp, tending to the dogs and making sure they are ready for tomorrow's journey. His trusty companion, Anyu, is by his side as always. The dog's tail slaps back and forth rapidly as you approach. "Oh, hey there," Elia says over his shoulder when he realizes Anyu's spotted you. "Calm down, will you, Anyu?" he scolds playfully, reaching down to ruffle her ears. You ponder aloud if she realizes the danger you're all in. "Oh, she knows," Elia responds. "She's rather good at making all the troubles of the world fade away. It wouldn't be the first time." You wonder with a bit of curiosity what other adventures Elia and Anyu might have been on in the past. But before you can ask, a cold flask hits you square in the chest and tumbles into your hands. "Drink," Elia offers. "It'll warm you up." He sits down and drinks from a flask of his own, motioning for you to join him. You do, gulping down a large swallow. It burns on its way down. Anyu lies between the two of you, nudging your hand pleadingly. No more words are spoken, but Elia is right. For just a moment, things are okay. Everything is okay. Bonding with Elia and Anyu makes things just a little better. Any one investigator may either heal one mental trauma or erase one horror from a partner asset recorded in the campaign log.
Well, that's rather unfortunate after we'd spent all that time trying to not drop the action tokens. But what I was more going to get at was that was rather unfortunate after we spent time trying to keep our investigators from getting defeated and suffering 2 trauma to get the campaign off to a start on the wrong foot. But anyway, so that's 2. Who else do we want to pay a visit to? Let's go. If I had to guess, I would guess that Dr. Cena will let us heal damage from the partner assets. So I think let's go pay. Well, might as well go pay Dr. Cena a visit. She was actually pretty useful to us as well.
If Dr. Mala Cena is alive,
She still is.
Dr. Cena gives you a hard glare as you approach. "If you tell me that you are too cold to sleep, so help me," she begins, but sighs as you shake your head. "Sorry, I know. Show me your wounds then. Let me do my job." She pulls out her medical kit and motions for you to sit on the bedroll gently. Nearby, no signs of frostbite, hypothermia, or gangrene. That is good. In silence, she studies the bruises and surface injuries you sustained from the crash. Finally, she clicks her tongue and shakes her head. "Uncanny," she murmurs under her breath. You give her an inquiring stare. 2 airplanes, she explains. Over a dozen of us spread between the 2, and yet we sustained more injuries from the journey across the ice shelf than we did in the crash. Except for... She trails off into harsh silence. As she dresses your wounds, you think about the meaning behind her words, the truth that she doesn't want to say out loud. Was the entity that forced your plane to the ground really trying to kill you, or was it simply guiding you? And if so, to what? Dr. Cena's expertise allows you to recover from your injuries. Any one investigator may heal one physical trauma or erase one damage from a partner asset recorded in the campaign log. If Dr. Malas...
I predicted that, and I still went and did it anyway, so derp on my part. Anyway, for our last investigator, or for our last partner asset that we get to check on, I don't know. Part of me wants to go check on Dr. Kensler because he's just so... I don't know. Looking at our partner assets, though, I almost feel like I want to go pay... Let's go pay Cookie a visit, actually.
If James Cookie Fredericks is alive, Cookie stares into the campfire as you approach, clearly in a world of his own. His distant eyes reflect the dim, flickering firelight. Who knows what he really sees within? The moment you begin to speak, he startles out of his reverie. "Ah, it's only you," he mutters, his voice gravelly. "Sit down. Fire's not just for me." You do, taking off your gloves and warming up your hands for a moment before asking Cookie what he thinks of the plan. "What do I think?" He almost laughs. "I think you're deluded, the lot of you. But what do I know?" You suspect aloud that he knows a lot more than the others think. That so? He asks in grim monotone. About war, maybe, he growls. But maybe that's what this all is after all. Right then, you want to know what I know? Fine. You listen intently as Cookie tells you his harrowing tales of the Great War. Tales that would surely give you nightmares were you not already in one. Cookie's advice helps you prepare for the journey ahead. Any one investigator earns one bonus experience. If Jane...
Alright, so who do we want to get that bonus experience? I don't think it's really going to matter, but I'm actually going to give it to... I'm going to give it to Norman. I feel like he needs more help with his deck right now than Tony does, but we have read four passages, so now we're going into Restful Night 2. Where are you? Here we are.
Restful Night 2. Silence falls over the camp as, one by one, the team falls into deep slumber. You try your damnedest to get some rest yourself, but every time you close your eyes, the image of those phantasmal creatures comes seeping behind your eyelids and you shoot awake. You wonder morbidly if death is the only way you will ever rest on this journey. Check the expedition team of the section of the campaign log. If there are 3 or more names crossed out, proceed to Restful Night 3. Otherwise, skip to Scenario 2, to the Forbidden Peaks.
Alright, so checking on the expedition team, we only have 1 name crossed off, so next we'll be on Scenario 2, to the Forbidden Peaks. I'm just going to make a quick note of that. Oh, I could spell. And indeed, that will do it for this scenario. So we got 9 experience for Tony, 10 for Norman by the time we got through interludes. That was a long one, though. But anyway, we also have another full slate of videos for this week coming up. Wednesday, we're stepping back into the background campaign for Hero Realms. Friday, we're going to have the first round of upgrades for this campaign. And Sunday, we're going into the next scenario of the campaign, to the Forbidden Peaks. Thank you for watching the video. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to turn on notifications so you get my content. Be well, stay safe, take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and I'll be back with more videos in the future. Until then, take care everyone.